Welcome to our Bloomberg audience. Is Romaine Bostick here with Julie Su, the Deputy Mayor of New York City's economic justice. Great to have you here. And I do want to start off, before we start talking specifically about your role, relatively new role, in the expansion of the Economic Development Corporation here in New York City. We just got a big jobs report, labor market report. You are the former acting labor secretary. We shed 23,000 jobs in the most recent month. The previous 2 months prior to that, I think we lost something like 100,000 jobs. That is the national story. I am curious, though, when it comes to the labor market, what is the New York City story right now?
Thank you, Romaine. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad you started with that, because today is Jobs Day, right? The day that the Bureau of Labor Statistics puts out figures for the entire country, and we are seeing it's confirmed what we've been saying, which is that the federal headwinds on the economy are really pretty devastating. Jobs are shedding. The unemployment rate was down just a little bit, but for all the wrong reasons, right? If it goes down because people leave the labor market rather than because they get jobs, that's not a sign of a strong economy. That's not a sign that people are finding jobs. It's a sign that people are giving up. And those, New York City is not immune from all of the reasons why the federal economy has taken such a dramatic downturn. At the same time, we don't have to just take it. It's really important what we do. It's important, New York City is a big economy that also helps to affect the rest of the nation's economy. And what we're seeing here is a different picture. We've had over 21,000 jobs created in the city over the last 6 months. New York City-based companies have raised over $21 billion in venture capital, which is a 102% increase from the same time period last year. We've had companies open their global headquarters here. The mayor and I were both proud to stand alongside American Express when they broke ground on their 2 World Trade Center headquarters. And the Manhattan real estate market is the strongest it's been since 2000.
But you say 21,000 jobs created. I mean, last year, for the entire year, or at least private companies, you only had maybe about 33,000 jobs created. You go back to 2024, we were at 100,000. Yeah. So that's a slowdown. That's a step down to a certain extent. Why?
It is. I mean, unfortunately, if you look at those exact time periods, right? 2025 was when the new federal administration came into office, and that was a terrible year for jobs. Like you noted, I think about a third of the number of jobs created in New York City were created in 2025 over the prior year, 2024. And, it takes some pretty bad decisions, wars, chaotic tariffs, to have that kind of dramatic impact. What we are focused on here in New York City is turning that around, right? Is doing everything we can to make sure that we're building as robust and strong an economy for shared prosperity as we can.
And that is your job. But your predecessor had a different title. It was the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development. You are the Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, same role, more or less, but clearly a reimagining of what that role is supposed to be. What does economic justice do for creating jobs and building the economy?
So it actually is a very much expanded role. And for this mayor, the vision is that we have for too long in the city had a booming economy by large aggregate numbers, but one that was also deeply unaffordable. We've had, an expanding skyline while New Yorkers were living ever shrinking lives. And we are no longer going to pretend that that's good enough. So the Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, the job is to make sure that there's a competitive and level playing field, that we continue to grow the economy and measure that growth by how everyday New Yorkers are feeling, whether they can stay in the city, whether they can afford the basics of life, right? Housing, food, childcare, transportation, and ensuring we do not take the choice that you have to choose economic growth or economic justice. We believe that's a false choice, and we're choosing both.
Did that economic growth not lead to economic justice as well? I mean, the EDC is responsible for a lot of the changes in our skyline, from Hudson Yards to the Brooklyn Terminal, et cetera. Were the gains, the benefits from that, did they not matriculate evenly across the board?
Yeah, I think New Yorkers have made that clear, right? In what they've said, in the sweeping mandate that this mayor had when he came to office. And you can't have a truly booming city if working people are being driven out, if people can't afford the basic cost of life. We put out a report that New Yorkers had demanded. They voted for this before we ever came into office, but we put it out showing that 62% of New Yorkers cannot afford the true cost of living in the city. That's 5 million people. So something is missing from how we measure the strength of the economy. And again, we want to do both. You know, I've been asked a lot, well, economic justice, do you actually care about economic growth? Of course we do. Of course we do. It takes economic growth to have justice, but it also takes justice to have the full amount of growth that we believe the city is capable of, and we're going to work on reaching its full potential.
How closely are you working right now with the business leaders here? Because some of them would argue that you're not going to achieve that without them. If they don't stay here and remain major employers, you're not going to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
So to be clear, we want them to stay here. Right? We know that
but they're threatening to leave.
And yet, we've seen, right, again, Manhattan office space is at rentals at an all-time high since 2000. I think it's like a quarter century high. We've stood alongside companies who've broken ground, and truly, there is a lot of noise around what people say, and then there's what actually happens, and there's actually what happens also behind closed doors, right? The mayor and I have engaged with those business leaders. We are setting up a business advisory council to make sure that we have ongoing interaction and feedback and communication and shared ideas. And truly, in those closed door meetings, what I see is a very shared commitment to and love for New York City, and an acknowledgement that we need government to function at its highest level, right? The mayor talks a lot about public excellence. We believe in that. It's not that people don't want to pay taxes, it's that they want their taxes to go to something that they can actually feel. And we are deeply committed to that. Everything from fixing potholes to delivering the first 2,000 childcare seats for 2K.
Well, with regard to the relationship with the business community, when do you anticipate that Business Advisory Council will be up and running? And have you actually named anyone to actually be on it?
Soon. It will be announced soon. I don't want to get ahead of the mayor. I want to let him go ahead and announce.
Well, Bloomberg is reporting that there have been a few names already floated around, like Jose Tavares and Robert Wolf and a few others. Have you spoken to them?
Those are all people that we have been in conversation with. I have myself, the mayor has sat down with them. They're really important to New York City. And again, what I found in all of my years in government at the highest levels of state and federal and now the largest city in the nation is that there's far more that we share in common than anything that would divide us. And with business, they know why having a strong economy in New York City is important. They also recognize that when you can keep New Yorkers in New York City, that's their employees, right? That's their talent pool.
But what's the conversation going to be? I mean, there's a lot of competition with other cities right now to attract these companies. A lot of cities offering a lot of incentives, tax breaks, et cetera. Mamdani came in pretty early and said, look, you know, the sort of traditional corporate subsidies that New York have relied on, that's over. Is that over?
Well, so I've actually been in conversation with a number of companies around specific projects. And what I'll say about that is that I think that there are many corporate leaders who care about New York City, not just what they can make, but what they can do for the city. And that's a area of shared common ground for us. And I think that there are ways to be creative about how we think about the city's land, the city's capital, right, the city's contracting and procurement that would allow us to support businesses getting to do, getting to make a profit and do well, but also making sure that everyday New Yorkers see themselves as belonging in the city.
Well, with some of the initiatives that Mamdani has taken so far, and with, to a certain extent, the support of the council, talk about the minimum wage. There's a big proposal out there to take the minimum wage from $17 up to 30. I think, by 2030 was the idea. I assume you support that. Do you actually think that's going to happen?
So here's what I'll say about that. We know that affordability is about both sides of the ledger. It's about bringing down the cost of things, and we've been laser focused on that. It's also about making sure that working people can keep more in their pockets. That's a function of better jobs with higher wages. It's also about their ability to join a union and negotiate for better wages, right? Union wages always higher than minimum wages. There's a reason for that. When workers have a voice on the job, it's good for everybody. And I think it's also a function of cracking down on the ways that New Yorkers have been nickeled and dimed for a long time. The junk fees, the subscription traps. So we're taking an all of it approach to how we address affordability. And certainly making sure that working people get more in their pockets is a really important part of that.
And there's no concern that if you do have such a meaningful increase in the minimum wage, that won't scare away certain employers that just don't want to pay it?
I mean, I know that there's been for, time immemorial, the argument that even having a minimum wage was going to end, business as we know it. The sky was going to fall, and that's certainly not happened. What it's provided is a basic safety net, right? There should be a floor beneath which no one should be forced to live and work, and the minimum wage is one part of what represents that.
This is obviously a core function of what Mamdani had promised on the campaign trail. these new grocery stores, these subsidized grocery stores that are being opened, I think there's only five right now, but is the plan to expand this more? And with regards to the structure of the discounts, 30% below what you would pay in, I guess, on average in a different grocery store, can that be maintained? And is there going to be a mechanism in place to make sure there's not, well, arbitrage where people can just go there, get a 30% discount on something and then flip it for a profit?
Yes, so yes to all of those things. The plan is to open one city grocery store in each borough by the end of the mayor's current term. We have chosen 2 sites already, one La Marqueta in East Harlem and the other at Hunts Point in the Bronx. And you said it exactly right. The goal here is to make sure that New Yorkers can have access to fresh, healthy, affordable food in their neighborhoods. And the 30% off of the market rate for produce, for seafood, for meat, and some of the basic staples that New York City residents buy is our commitment. In fact, we have a survey happening right now that people can find online or go to their local library to learn what it is that people want to see in their grocery store. And this is something about how we want to govern, right? Which is that we're not here to dictate exactly what people need, but we are here to listen to everybody across New York City about what they want, what they need, what's going to make life better. And that's the grocery stores are part of that, too.
All right, Julie, I have to ask you about the pied-à-terre tax. It's all anyone talks about. You guys sent out a notice last month. 17,000 people got it. It was a little messy, and there were clearly some errors on that. But I assume that the administration plans to move forward with the pied-à-terre luxury tax. And if so, do you have enough, I guess, legwork done already to make sure that the people are getting these notices and that the people that are going to be on the hook for it indeed are supposed to be on the hook for it?
Yes, so of course, the whole idea behind public excellence is that we do things the way they're supposed to be done, and people can expect a certain level of excellence from their government. And the pied-à-terre tax is an example of really, I give a lot of credit to the mayor and the governor for working together to find a way to raise the revenue needed for some of these things that we're talking about. Again, housing and childcare and transportation, schools, right? Things that are really signature to, parts of a livable city. And so these notices went out because it's a new tax, is a notice of you would potentially have to pay this. And to the extent that it went out, if somebody, it's supposed to be your like a second home that you're not living in that is valued at over $5 million, right? This is a tax on a small segment, really, of people who don't actually live in New York City, don't actually live on that property. And to the extent that there are people for whom that they're not supposed to pay that tax because they don't qualify under those terms, there is a mechanism to communicate that, and the mayor's just extended the time to do that also.
Have you spoken with Ken Griffin at all?
I've spoken to a whole lot of business leaders, not Ken Griffin himself.
Jim Whalen?
But yes. I mean, these are all really important people. And yesterday I was at an event for a Better New York, ABNY, where a lot of people who work in these organizations are. It was actually a women's event. We're really proud of the women's leadership in the city too. And the idea is that I do believe that, no offense to the news, but beneath the news cycle and the noise is where real work happens. And I have seen throughout my time in government that real work is collaborative, it's in partnership. And when you present a new vision, an idea that we don't have to think so small about what is possible in the city. We don't have to think of the economy as something that only benefits a few and everyone else is clawing for a secure space in it. We can build a bigger economy where everybody gets a fair shake and everybody gets to feel safe and secure and feel joy and experience art and culture. That's part of economic justice too in the mayor and my vision. When we do that, many people can get on board for that.
Do you bristle at all at some of the criticism? I mean, you've heard it from the President of the United States. This is socialism, this is communism, this is, whatever scare word you want to put in there. That's directed at you, it's directed at Mamdani. You have Anthony Shores coming in, Lena Khan chairing the Economic Development Council. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I'm glad you mentioned that. We are very excited about our new leadership at the EDC. The EDC is one of the most powerful engines for economic justice that the city has, and we are going to make sure that it is used for that full purpose. Now, the EDC has been operating on all cylinders even before our latest announcements, and they've done tremendous work. The grocery stores is one, as you mentioned earlier, right? A lot of the real estate projects that happen in the city happen because EDC has played a role, but we're very excited excited about our new president and the new chair of our board, who are going to bring a new set of eyes to what is possible at EDC. And I think there are tools within that agency that have not been fully utilized before to do things like make sure that all New Yorkers get to participate in their economy, that New Yorkers get a say in what kind of economic development they want to see in their communities, so that economic development isn't just project that drops on the heads of people, but it's something that they get to help build up. What do we need? What do we want to see built? What is going to make life better? And it's going to increase access to capital to more people across New York City.
You know, as we wrap up this conversation, you mentioned the groundbreaking for the American Express building down in Lower Manhattan. I was at that groundbreaking. I heard the speeches. Obviously, this is the final building for the World Trade Center complex. A long time in the making. I feel like everything that's transpired over the last 20 years over that is kind of a reflection of this push and pull that we see in New York over who should take priority. But some of those speeches, it wasn't just about the building itself or even American Express itself. It was about the economic activity that springs up around that, people living in that area. Well, do you anticipate that in your tenure, however long you're here, or the 4 years that Mamdani's here, we will see a major corporation, maybe one that's not already here, break ground on something similar to that?
I would say yes to that. I mean, again, we saw American Express break ground, and that project really embodies so much of what we're talking about here today, right? It is going to be done by union labor, and we heard at that event just why that's so important, that we don't just want buildings, although we want them, we want the people who build them to also be able to live good, secure lives. It's a project that demonstrates the resilience and renewal of New York City. It's sort of the last part of the building of the World Trade Center site, and I think that, as the mayor said that day, it's really emblematic of who New York City is, that from literal ashes, we can build the city, and when we do that, we can also build it anew. And on this 25th anniversary nearly of 9/11, I think there's no better example of what this mayor is bringing to the city, and we're really excited to keep on delivering on that.